Hello everybody, Bruce McGonigal here. So, big study out of British Columbia. It turns out that the safe supply / harm reduction programs David Eby championed for years has made the overdose crisis in British Columbia worse and overburdened our healthcare system with an avalanche of even more people overdosing. Now, they can't say directly that it's caused more people to die, these programs, but it has created a lot more addicts and a lot more people are overdosing and dying. What we do know from the data that's already been put out is that more children are dying because of safe supply than if we didn't have safe supply at all. In fact, I believe they said in 2023 that we had 20% or 22% of all overdose deaths under 18 being created on safe supply, which would have worked out for that year to about 8 kids dying on safe supply. Well, get this, folks. In 2014, only 3 children died in an entire year from overdose. In 2019, not a single child had died from safe supply pills. It was only when the safe supply program rolled out that children started dying on this stuff. And when they started to die more and more, and it became very clear that safe supply was killing children, our government changed the data so that children's deaths would be listed as unregulated drug deaths. Okay? So in other words, they're once again doing the COVID-era cover-up where they will report certain things that look good for their narrative and then omit things or put a blanket over things that they don't want people to fully understand, like that their program that's supposed to be saving lives is actually killing children. We just saw here in British Columbia that a 5-year-old girl overdosed on fentanyl and she had to be given multiple shots of naloxone to revive her. So these are statistics that people don't understand in British Columbia. The death tolls are horrible. But that poor little girl that's 5 years old, she might have brain damage now and she might never fully be able to integrate into society. Or even worse, she might be not just brain damaged, but prone to being an addict on fentanyl before she's even 12 or 13 because this stuff is going to be everywhere. We have a pandemic of bad ideas in British Columbia that have directly targeted children. Children that the government swore up and down it was going to protect. So my question now is, why was all of this covered up for so long? Why is David Eby not under arrest for aiding organized crime and literally empowering, by decriminalization, the death of over 16,000 to 17,000 British Columbians, the vast majority of which are men and boys? This is World War era deaths that we're going through right now because of David Eby's policy. We were told by the Liberals endlessly last year and by David Eby before the election that safe supply and harm reduction programs were saving lives. That was all a lie. So the bare minimum at this point should be Dr. Bonnie Henry is fired and David Eby steps down as the Premier of British Columbia and moves away from politics. Then we need to have an investigation done into all of this to find out exactly what the government knew, when they knew it, and why, for the love of all things holy, did our government continue to pump these safe supply pills onto the streets through their program until the very first day that the legislature was sitting again. From the time that they knew this was happening to the first day of the legislature sitting, that's all time where they were aiding organized crime. They were literally working in conjunction with organized crime, because the second that you allow people to use you and your government assets to commit crimes and you know it's happening, you're an accessory. These are basic law facts. So I don't understand why David Eby gets a skate on this. I really don't. Any other time in Canadian history or British Columbia history, he not only would have been forced out, he likely would have been let out in handcuffs, folks, by now. So please stay tuned. Should be a massive breaking story right across Canada, and a lot of questions need to be asked across Canada about why these harm reduction programs were rolled out across Canada and why people were promoting all of the death and destruction in BC that we have right now as saving lives somewhere else if they only adopted our programs. You understand, folks? These people were stacking bad ideas on top of bad ideas, and when the policies were not working, they covered it up. We need accountability. I want justice. I hope you all want justice too. We have an election coming right now. The Conservative Party of Canada is the only party that has been standing up for this stuff. So let's give them a huge show of support and let's get their vote going here so that there is a blue tsunami in this next election, and we will finally get answers and accountability for COVID-19, for the overdose crisis, for the lockdowns, mandates, the vaccine passports, the safe supply nonsense, the harm reduction injection sites. Right, folks? Let's take our country back.